And the first of the two short stories. Christmas in the Jungle. Why am I in this God-forsaken place at Christmas, so far from home? My mind drifted back to Foodie in Fife as I stood in a dwam in the thick of the undergrowth. Bananas! What else? They are cultivated like raspberries. The old trunks are cut down after fruiting to allow the new young growth to leap up in the tropical heat, ready to bear next year's crop. I was blazing a trail, slashing the old trunks with my long panga, marking them for the chop. The boys would follow and lay waste to the old, making way for the new. I stumbled upon an old stem of bananas missed at harvest. I struggled to reach it and was filled with pleasure when my efforts were rewarded. Brushing aside the ants and decaying skin, the overripe sticky mess fell apart in my hands. This was lovely. This was heaven. Eating the sweet, sticky, dry mess gave moisture to my mouth and deprived the ants of their Christmas feast. I thought again of home, my far-off home, my sweet Annie and our wee baby Brian. I know Santa brought him a black and white teddy this Christmas. Why am I here on Christmas Day? Am I mad? Am I crazy? I've worked in a few countries, and after all, Scots have made the world what it is today, and what a bloody mess we've made. My mind drifted again in the oppressive humidity. Time almost stood still. It was so hot and sticky. I felt lethargic and so tired, so heavy, so... My heart stopped dead. The hair stood up on the back of my neck. I was rooted to the spot. Surrounding creepers and tendrils moved to absorb me into the dappled light and shades of green. I watched the telltale glint of polished buttons across the pool in the clearing. The flash and glint gave away the presence of the security forces. This was no time to be seen. Experience had shown that to be apprehended by them could be dangerous, time-consuming, and at least pretty uncomfortable. They had little to do but to interrogate and talk. I stood in the undergrowth and watched warily as the officer eventually moved away from the clearing without ever sensing my presence. Gradually I relaxed, worked away, and in time returned to my dreams of home so far away. Craiglug Cottage Foodie, a draughty wee place if ever there was one. The cold wind used to race down from the shoulder of Craiglug Hill and find every nook and cranny in our cottage. I remember us huddling around the fire, listening to the wind roaring in the trees and telling ghost stories to entertain Janet, Annie's younger sister. There were calm days as well. Days I spent in my summer garden with neatly ranked rows of vegetables. Flowers too, for Annie, for cutting. My favourite plant was the spectacular rampant bramble with heavily dissected leaves which smothered the old stone walls of the disused pigsty. Its origins were in China, and its arrival in Foodie added exotic beauty to the plants in my garden. I swung into a steady rhythm. The swish, chunk of my panga became music to my ears. My dreams of home and my hot, steady progress were in complete harmony now. Swish, chunk, swish, chunk. James Balfour, Laird of Foodie, had been kind and generous to us. His generosity was not always beneficial. This time last year he filled me full of expensive whisky, and me teetotal, except at the New Year. Much to Annie's amusement, I flirted with his attractive thespian daughter, fresh from London and the bright lights. Not that I remember much apart from the image of this gorgeous young woman in thigh-length boots and miniskirt, appearing in her own real-life pantomime before my eyes. When later, much later, we stepped outside the big house, a blast of January's cold air hit me like a stone dike, and I was away. Annie steered me, half carried me home through the pitch-black night to the pink elephants which walked up the wall, across the ceiling, and down the other side. There were hundreds of them. They wouldn't stop and wouldn't go away. Was I ill? 5 long days later, I resurfaced to life and was able to delicately present myself at St Andrews University, a little wiser and not too fond of the water of life. Sweet Annie, will she be missing me? I longed for home. Sweet, sweet Annie. 4:20, Buana. God, the panga in mid-flight just avoided amputation. Out of my dream with a jump and time to go home. I made haste to join the boys, hurrying off, leaving me behind. When I clocked out at the gatehouse of the Royal Botanic Garden in the freezing Edinburgh air, I wondered, how many people have eaten Scotch-grown bananas in a Scottish jungle on Christmas Day? 40 miles on my Austin A30 and home to Foodie and sweet, sweet Annie. Happy Christmas.